Welcome back to the Morning Show here on the Rise News. I am Adesua Omoran.
And I'm Rufai Sidi.
Well, on Monday, the national bodies of both the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, NASU, and Non-Academic Staff Union, University of Ibadan, a branch began a 3-day protest to demand 30 billion naira earned allowance.
The unions frowned on the alleged preferential treatment extended by ASU by the federal government of Nigeria in the allocation of 80% of monies released to the union, leaving the non-academic staff with just 20% of this.
Well, before we begin this discussion, let's take a look at this report.
The national bodies of both Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities and the Non-Academic Staff Union has frowned at the alleged preferential treatment extended to ASU by the federal government as seen in the allocation of 80% to the academic union, leaving the non-academic staff with 20% of the released monies. The branch of both unions in University of Ibadan on Monday began a 3-day protest to demand 30 billion naira earned allowance and federal government's refusal to obey court judgments on staff school salaries. As a continuous issue in Nigeria, the strike action, which has the potential of becoming a nationwide menace, needs an urgent intervention in order to save the Nigerian academic institutions.
Well, now joining us from our Abuja studio is Professor N. Obasi to discuss some more.
All right. Professor Obasi, it's a joy talking to you all the way in Abuja. We'd like you to make a sense of... Professor, are you there, sir? Can you hear me, Prof?
Yes.
Good. Prof, we'd like for you to make a sense...
I hear you clearly.
We'd like for you to make a sense of all of this recurring decimal in the Nigerian academic system. I mean, a lot of people want to cite it back to the 70s of the time of Ali Must Go, but in recent memory, we all know that this back and forth has been as a result of that agreement in 2007, 2008, the Ukachukwu Awuzie agreements then as the president of ASU, and that has not been implemented. And other cases surrounding that has been solved, like the 44 lecturers sacked at the University of Ilorin. But this has been a recurring decimal. I mean, what can we make a sense of all of this, sir?
Yeah, you're right. You said it's a recurring decimal. But first, a clarification. The demonstration by SANU and NASU yesterday, that was reported in the University of Ibadan, is a nationwide thing. It's not restricted to the University of Ibadan. In fact, the two bodies, part of JAC, there is a Joint Action Committee of the non-academic staffs made up of Senior Staff Association of Universities, SANU, and non-academic staff of universities, the educational institution, etc., NASU, and then the National Association of Professional Technologists. So there are 3 of them, but 2, SANU and NASU, met in Abuja, I think on 12th, on Friday, to deliberate on what they feel is a discriminatory attitude towards them by the federal government, and then declared that a kind of warning strike, they called it a demonstration, a protest, is a warning strike, which in all the universities is supposed to take place. And then after that, in the zonal, then they rally in Abuja to mark it, to give what they said would be a mother of all strikes. So they are warming up. The point you made is quite right about what has been happening in the past, recurring inter-union rivalries taking place. I wish to state that this rivalry between non-academic staff and academic staff has the historical root in 1993. That year, the federal government repudiated the part of the 1992 agreement entered by ASU and the federal government, which allowed a separate salary scale for academics. So NASU, then non-academic staff, protested heavily, and the then secretary, under Abacha, the ministers were called secretary of education, repudiated that section, that all university staff are the same, they go to the market the same way, they do everything together, therefore, there should be no demarcation. That is the historical root from where we are coming. Ever since then, the non-academic staff have developed their own way of protecting their members. Let me state that both academic staff and non-academic staff are legitimately recognized by law. So each sector is legitimately entitled to protect, canvass, and advocate for the betterment of their members. So this is what the JAC is doing under, started doing yesterday, Monday, and it will last for 3 days. So in all the universities.
Indeed, I like to describe the recurring decimal in the education sector as something that is almost as constant as the rain. It comes with no surprises, causes disruption, and leaves in its wake, costly memories for those at the receiving end, the students. It's so recurring, it's heartbreaking. But tell us, this Senior Staff Association and the non-academic staff, how much of an impact will that have on the academic calendar at this time?
Excellent question. Well, let me state right away that what you see playing out exists in every organization. It depends on how constructively it is managed. That's what we call the line and staff principle. It demarcates the functions and subsidiary, fundamental, and subsidiary function of any organization, including where you work. There are those who have line authorities. They are called the line staff. Those who are supportive support staff, they are called support staff. They are the staff. Each of these two are important. The functions that are performed in organizations is seen as a chain, a process, where one plays their own role. And complementarily, the organization survives and makes, remains in operation. Let me state that this line of staff demarcation has underlying conflict within it. It depends on how it is managed in organizations. Every organization has a core function. So, for every organization, there is a staff, there is a line. You may be a staff in one organization, move to other and become a line. So, it doesn't discriminate theoretically against any group. But in organizations, some see it as looking at them as they are inferior, they are not playing important role in that organization. Let me state, repeat what I said in another way. A university is just a place for learning between lecturers and students. That's operational definition. So it is in the primary school, secondary school, teachers and pupils. So that's why you can have those in the primary school getting their lessons under a tree where there's no building at all. So learning is taking place, but of course we know that's not ideal, and nobody wants that to happen. But I'm only using to tell you that if you go to the hospital, define it anyhow, operationally it ends up with doctors and patients. But does that capture what really in reality? No. So there is a need of what Rin says like it, an organizational specialist, one of our masters in the field, called principle of supportive relationship. Each group is playing an important role and should be recognized. So when a particular group feels that their aspirations, their values, their expectations, whatever they want in organization is not being met, they feel cheated and they don't have a sense of personal worth and importance. And if they don't exercise that, they begin to agitate. So let me state that the non-academic staff are important in the university. But in the university, they are staff. Nobody sends a child to a university to go to the hospital for medical treatment. No, but medical treatment, medical clinic is important in the university. But that's not why you send your child there. Nobody sends your child to be administered by administrator. But it is important. Administrators register students. And they also bear, in some cases, brunt of overwork that lecturers have. And that will lead us to the next discussion I'm sure you will ask about end allowance.
Okay, it will lead us to end allowance. And you know the draconian word in this conversation, Professor, about end allowance. That big word called contis, the contis structure. Can you break down for our audience, those that are watching us, the contis structure and this dichotomy in the contis structure? Because it looks like a nerve burning deep into everybody.
No, it's not the issue. It's not really the issue. If you want to talk about job evaluation, for instance, it's a job of Salaries and Wages Commission. The job evaluation determines what work you do, what value it is, what price or salary should be paid to. It doesn't have to do with just context at all. It doesn't have to do. That's why I started by talking about line and staff. In the university, the salary scale is given on the basis of your work, That's why a deputy registrar, for instance, is an equivalent of an associate professor. So the salary scale does not discriminate now. But what discriminates or what demarcates them is what we call allowances. And this is a route through which we now talk about end academic allowances according to ASU's perspective. So end allowances now will come when you have overwork. Principally on the basis for academics who initiated this struggle is that lecturers are overworked. A class that's supposed to be 50 people is 150. So that's extra work they're doing, you pay for it. In the normal common parlance in administration, it's called overtime for those in administration. And every organization recognizes what you call overtime. So work is evaluated on the basis of the things those people are doing, their work, their relative importance in the organization. And this is even what the university doesn't fix that itself. But the unions can struggle to establish their worth. The agency that does, the federal government agency that will say, okay, let us do evaluation of work in the universities and see how we can properly assess what each person is doing. So at the end of the day, when ASU succeeded in getting government to now pay them, call it overtime in quote, which is called end academic allowance, the non-academic staff union started agitating that they themselves, they are also suffering. And let me now revert to the question I think Adesu asked me, how does this impact in the system? Initially those years, we said, oh, well, they are doing subsidiary work, we can do without them. And sometimes you succeeded, and we did. When I was at the University of Nigeria, we succeeded. They locked the gate, we opened them. We did this, they locked the classrooms. We gave lectures outside, but it's not how an organization can run. But over the years, they also learned to sharpen their skills in strategic struggles. And they now make persuasive arguments, and this I recognize, that some of them are also overworked. During registration, it's an eyesore what students and those who register them go through, both academic and non-academic staff. During, there are certain times Chancellor is missing, some non-academic staff, senior administrators, and their junior ones spend a lot of time. Some come back 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So they are also suffering. What is now in contention is the relative value and weight you attach to the function they do. How can they be paid? To start with, not everybody, even in the university, gets the same academic end allowances. There are those who get around and something, there are those who get 1 million. So if you're carrying 500 students like in faculty of education, you can't be thinking you earn the same thing in other faculties that have 50 students. No. On the basis of that, there is demarcation. The non-academic staff has succeeded to arrive at a win-win trajectory. It took time before they were not recognized for end allowance. They were dismissed that you are not doing academic work, therefore you can't earn it. They made a persuasive argument about how they are also suffering in other areas. We agree. So they got a win-win package. But that win-win package is not so in contention to how would be the ratio be. Currently, what they are arguing is that ASU was giving 80%, they were giving 20%. They are asking that whatever the percentage is, they need 30 billion to take care of their own. From 2009 years to 2016, when these areas are calculated, that's what they are arguing for. What I call for is recognition of principle of supporting relationship. There must be harmony. There must be cooperation. And that leads me to that question. When we had one of our last strikes, the non-academic staff, skillfully used their own leverage, because e-registration requires that even if you do certain things in the department by a lecturer, you go to, there's a portal, you go to finish it with non-academic staff. The non-academic staff decided to pull their string, and registration in my own university, University of Abuja, I speak on that particular session.
We're going through a break now. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break, and we'll talk some more.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. We still have with us from our Abuja studios, Professor Obasi, talking about the one-inch strike and the intended murder of all strikes threatened by non-academic staff of universities as well as the senior staff of those universities.
Professor, I'll just take you back to the contest question, because A lot of people listening to you will say you're saying that because you were part of the academic staff of a university, so you always defend your forte against the non-academic staff. The bane of this problem, the county salary structure that was put into effect on the 1st of January 2007, this, a lot of people, in the non-academic side are saying this automatically shuts them out. This automatically says they can aspire as much as their colleagues in the academic staff. This makes that dichotomy very palpable, just like the dichotomy that lab technicians have under Johisu with medical doctors. So a lot of people are saying, address it, Prof. Address it. Let's talk about it. Is there fairness in this county structure? Let's talk about this, Prof. Let's go back to that.
Yeah, that question is fundamentally wrong. That conception is fundamentally wrong. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking as a union ASU member. I have appeared in Arise telling you that I even take exception to the way ASU, which a union I belong and benefit from, does. I do research on ASU, so I have my views about our own politics of the union. I am here talking as a scholar in industrial relations, a policy analyst in that area. I am not profiling or protecting any union. I'm telling you the problem is beyond the university. It's a job evaluation issue. If at a graduate assistant, I entered the university as a graduate assistant, there are my mates who were employed the same year as administrative staff, okay? And we were sent for masters together. If I didn't make my masters, I wouldn't remain. Those of us who could not make their masters in a way that it qualifies them to do PhD will not remain. They move to administrative staff. So the same staff that entered with me, I am here battling with a PhD. That staff is already senior assistant registrar or principal assistant registrar, PAS. And immediately after that, that is the senior lecturer level. You are still battling as lecturer 1. You don't have your PhD. So I'm telling you from scholarly point of view that it's a job evaluation issue. It's not a sentimental or ideological issue that people should be talking about. Everybody has a right to agitate for their own interests. I legitimately allow that and agree to that. But we can't be changing what is theoretically sound and globally recognized as a practice. So there is a difference between the academic staff and non-academic staff. At point of entry, they are even not, if you put them together, there are brilliant chaps who entered administration with 2-1. Ordinarily, without a 2-1 and first class, you can't enter into lecturing profession, but it's admitting 2-2. So you enter, but you see that even the person who is below you in that qualification or in the class of qualification is rising fast in administration. So to take that into consideration, you now have an inbuilt reward for those who go through academic staff and go to the rigors that requires to do a PhD, spend 3 years, minimum 4 years or 5 years, at most sometimes 6. And what that does is to pay you for a kind of deferred gratification. And let me say it clearly, it's not just with academics. The veterinary doctors, the medical doctors, the agricultural colleagues of ours, when they graduate, those who do 5 years, 6 years, they don't answer the same entry point with their classmates. They don't. In other areas, they are giving higher. Some will start at 9, others will start at 8. So it is an objective discrimination that recognizes fairness. So those of them who are arguing this don't understand the intricacies of what is employed. Anybody can agitate. Animals can agitate. Foolish men, madmen have opinions. They can agitate. That's not what they're saying. Agitation must be based on facts. And facts must recognize objectivity. And what you call sentiments will go by it. So the problem is not what you are calling context. I keep saying it. It's not a structural problem.
Okay, is it also
And because of the abrogation of the separate, let me put it in historical context now. Okay. Because of the abrogation of the separate salary scale in 1993 that was given in 1992 Federal Government Agreement, the issue now has went about cleverly and clearly to now make sure that where you get extra on earned allowances that are peculiar to you. So everybody does not earn the same. Even academic staff don't earn the same thing allowances. Those who go to the fields, they earn a lot of allowances. Those of us who are in the classrooms, we don't go to the field. go to like geologists and rest of them. They have certain things that are given to them, derived on the work they are doing. Is peculiar and recognizes. So in industrial relation, that is a perfect way of resolving fundamental discrepancies and fairness of injustice that are inbuilt if you don't correct it. So the issue of separate salary is not a contention. It's not a contention. That's not what they're even talking about. They are talking about allowances, they think they earned, which I have said they are legitimately correct in asking for it.
Indeed. And Prof, is this also a matter of fact that the issue of earned allowances is at the discretion of the university and the governing council of each school? And if this is so, how do we resolve this 80% to 20% ratio they are agitating? And if it's going to be across boards, what are the implications of this, in ensuring that our academic calendar is not disrupted? Because you have pointed how important these sectors of workers are to the university.
Yeah, that's good too. The observation is quite good. The issue is that they are important. There's a limit to which they can pull their strings. That's important to which a limit to which they can pull their strings. Every union in the university has tried their own power, leverage in bargaining, and in staying and resilient power. They've tried it. ASU has exceeded 6 months on their strikes and came back stronger and was able to do it. The other unions are trying to make sure that they also they have inbuilt support mechanism that can sustain long strike. They don't have the capacity to sustain light strike like ASU. And that itself is a weakness. And this is global. You cannot get more than you can leverage in collective bargaining. It's all about power. There's politics in collective bargaining. So if your power is enough to pull a string that can disrupt the system completely, they can do that. But I've told you that the university can run, I qualify my statement, the university can run, in other words, lectures are going on with students without them. But it cannot, the process cannot complete without them. So there's a limit. The other aspect you raise is also very critical. The unions are asking for enhanced end allowance. The power to give that ratio, according to them too, I'm not just saying from ASU, they got it from the Ministry of Education. According to them, the 80%, 20%. So it's not, at that global level, that's a macro level, it's not the university that determines. But if that 80% has been given to ASU, to different universities, and then 20% to different JAC members in the different universities, then the university council are talking about, or ASU, internal arrangement will now determine how it is distributed. Let me say it clearly and openly, that the way it is internally distributed has its own fault. I am a victim. I am a victim. In the last one, I didn't get anything at all. There are some of my colleagues I also know who didn't get anything. They made some agitation, they were paid. I wasn't paid. Whatever the reason, I don't want to know. But I give it to them. I'm an analyst. Sometimes I may hurt you. That's hurt ASU. The other time it may be the other union. So if you feel one way to punish me is not to give me end academic allowance, no problem. But what I'm telling you is that 80% is now shared in the university. So what we are sharing is ASU members sharing their own, NASU members sharing their own. The university management and council provide a platform to allow them to do this amicably.
Okay,
there
Prof.
are places where it has never been so. They quarrel.
Okay, Prof.
I hope you get the internal and external factor.
I get the internal and the
sharing.
external factor, and I thank you a lot for your honesty. You saying that it affected you at some point, that's just shows a lot of bravery. Prof,
Exactly.
But let's move forward here. I mean, when you see all of this rambling, is it not a conversation that you might want to consider for full autonomy of universities? Because a lot of people have argued if full autonomy is the case, then maybe we might be able to settle all these ramblings and, break education away pretty much from the Ministry of Education, and they're just regulatory bodies, but all the allowances, remuneration, and things like that full autonomy of universities might just solve all of this wrangling. What do you think about that thought, sir?
Well, you are okay. You know, there are a lot of permutations on the ground on how to get around this. But let me also tell you the issue is not about even the end allowance we are talking about. You know, they protested against their exclusion in the Nupenco, Nigerian University's pension management company, Nupenco. They protested also on the government non-obedience to court orders that said they are sacked staff in the university, that's what we call staff schools. Those sacked staff must be returned, must be recalled. Court has given, order that they should be reinstated. They've not done that. So they have a couple of points that they are agitating for. It's not only end allowances. It's just one of them. So even without end allowances, they have protested before on other issues that are bothering them. But I agree with you. The issue of industrialization in our higher education sector, so to say, is a very big one. We need to think more deeply, just like as we also need to talk more deeply in the health sector. What is afflicting the higher education sector is also afflicting the health sector. You can also take it to tertiary level, where you have the College of Education, they are also, they are also agitating. Take it to Polytechnic, they are also agitating. So government has a critical role of doing a proper and clear job evaluation and making sure that across sectors, people are fairly treated. And when this is done, you can have a measure of satisfaction and feeling of injustice will be minimized. I hope you are getting what I'm saying.
I get your drift, Prof. I get your drift, Prof.
So
I get your drift, Prof. We'd like to say a very big thank you to you. We'd like to say a very big thank you to you, Professor Obasi, public affairs analyst, for taking us through this and, helping us to understand the issues.